perfectly. It's from Patrick Henry. And he said, the liberties of a people never were nor ever will be secure when the transactions of their rulers may be concealed from them. So, my friends, today be grateful, read great books, think good thoughts, listen to beautiful music, communicate and listen well, live honestly and authentically, strive for high ideals, and like Superman, stand for truth, justice, and the American way. My friends, you are not alone. God bless you, and God bless America. Stay tuned for hour number 2.
Through the rain and lightning, wandering out into this great unknown. And I don't want no one to cry, but tell them if I don't survive, I was born free. I was born free. I was born free.
The views and opinions expressed on KLZ 560 are those of the speaker, commentators, hosts, their guests, and callers. They are not necessarily the views and opinions of Crawford Broadcasting or KLZ management, employees, associates, or advertisers. KLZ 560 is a Crawford Broadcasting God and Country station.
It's the Kim Monson Show, analyzing the most important stories.
The socialization of transportation, education, energy, housing, and water, what it means is that government controls these through rules and regulations.
The latest in politics and world affairs.
Under the guise of bipartisanship and nonpartisanship, it's actually tapping down the truth.
Today's current opinions and ideas.
On an equal field, in the battle of ideas, mistruths or misconceptions is getting us into a world of hurt.
Is it freedom or is it force? Let's have a conversation.
Indeed. Let's have a conversation, and welcome to the Kim Monson Show. Thank you so much for joining us. You're each treasured, valued. You have purpose. Today, strive for excellence. Take care of your heart, your soul, your mind, and your body. My friends, we were made for this moment. And thank you to the team that I work with. That's producer Steve, producer Luke, Zach, Echo, Charlie, and all the people here at Crawford Broadcasting. And we are so pleased to welcome producer Joe, who is training with producer Steve. Producer Steve is going to retire. And so very pleased to welcome producer Joe. Joe, welcome.
Hi, Kim. Thank you.
Okay. And
see, right away, I'm trying to teach him things, and then I screw up. His mic wasn't on.
Okay, we'll try it one more time. Joe, welcome.
Thank you, Kim.
There you go. So there's a lot of buttons over there, producer Steve, and a lot of different moving parts.
Did you see the writing on the wall? Like I said last week, there's tired and there's retired, and I'm proving the case.
But you are such an important part of the team, and I greatly appreciate you. Be sure and check out our website. That is Kim Monson, MONSON.com. Sign up for our weekly email newsletter. You'll get first look at our upcoming guests as well as our most recent essays. You can email me at kim@kimmonson.com. And thank you to all of you who support us. We're an independent voice. We search for truth and clarity by looking at these issues through the lens of freedom versus force, force versus freedom. If something's a good idea, you should not have to force people to do it. And did want to mention a nonprofit I dearly love. That is the USMC Memorial Foundation. They are raising money for the remodel, and it is a great way to honor those that have given their lives or been willing to give their lives for us. And so a great thing to do would be to go over to usmcmemorialfoundation.org and make a contribution. And in studio with me is my friend, Professor Kurt Gerwitz. We'll be talking about U.S. credit rating, and then also you're going to update us on AI, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It's
Good
great,
morning.
Great to have you here.
It's great to be here. It's a beautiful day.
It is. It's a beautiful day to be alive. And let's see here. Let's get over to our quote of the day. And if you did not listen in on hour number 1, you can hear that today at 1 o'clock. And we talked about Joe P. Martinez. He was born in 1920, died in 1943, was awarded the Medal of Honor for actions that he took fighting the Japanese on a Attu Island in the Aleutian Islands. Again, in 1943. He died because of that battle. And I'd interviewed his cousin, 95-year-old Levi Martinez, in 2018. Levi has since passed on, but his love and respect for his cousin, he said, "May I read the citation?" And I said, "Absolutely." So we pulled that soundbite, and we played that of Levi talking about his cousin and the citation, and you can hear that in the 1 to 2 o'clock hour. But thinking of Joe P. Martinez, I pulled this quote from George Patton, General George S. Patton. He said, "It is foolish and wrong to mourn the men who died. Rather, we should thank God that such men lived." And again, Joe P. Martinez. I will tell you why we did that. And this was because of Jerome, one of our listeners. He said, "Hi, Kim. Thanks for your fine veterans show. I just wanted to tell you it's the 80th anniversary of Medal of Honor recipient Private Joseph Pantaleon Martinez's death on Attu Island in 1943. He is from Alt, Colorado, and his statue is in the Alt City Park. Imagine, drafted in 42 and killed in 43. Can you think of any way we could honor him? You can pull up his service details on the web. Veterans never forget." Thank you for your time. That was from Jerome. Thank you, Jerome, for bringing that to our attention. And we get to do this because I have great sponsors. I know each and every one of them personally. And if you need their goods or services, a great way to work with great people who strive for excellence and also support the show is to give your business to my sponsors. I am so pleased to have the Roger Mangan State Farm Insurance team as a sponsor of the show, and I'm talking with Roger Mangan. And Roger, we think about insurance, we think about our cars, our apartments, our homes, but there's things that people don't think about that they should, correct?
Yes, and those are the things that kind of come back to bite people because it hasn't been brought to their attention. So maybe the purpose of this show, at least for me in this show, would be to raise their level of consciousness about some things that they may not be aware of. For example, laptops. You have children, and maybe your own, but children at college taking their laptops. You may spend $1,000 for a laptop or $2,000. And the question is, what happens if that laptop gets stolen or the student's on their bike and they drop it and it breaks? It's over with. The laptop is kaput. So what you want, and by the way, they're covered by your homeowner's policy, but your homeowner's policy has a deductible that usually is 0.5% or 1%. So a $500,000 house in Denver, average price around $500,000. That's a $5,000 deductible. So the laptop being covered isn't covered because the deductible exceeds $1,000, the cost of the laptop. So you can put that laptop on what we call a personal articles policy, PAP, sometimes called a PAF, personal articles floater, with no deductible. A $1,000 laptop would cost per year about $60 to insure. And it's all risk. It's not named peril. So if the hard drive explodes or collapses or gets overheated, that's going to be covered. So you can get it repaired, not only theft or dropping it. So you should look into that. If you want some information on that, call my office at 303-795-8855. We'd be glad to help you, guide you through some choices.
So on these policies, Roger, so would that policy just be for that laptop, or would other things be included in that $60 per year?
That would be the minimum premium for a PAF, and it happens to be the laptop costs $60 a year. So you can have one item on there, but normally you would have jewelry, you could have artwork, you could have collections you might have. So personal articles floaters identify a lot of specialty personal property items that under your homeowners are covered. But really, when it came to claim time, you wouldn't have a claim because of the deductible. If the coverage rides on your homeowner's policy, it's always subject to a deductible. So we want to get it off the homeowner's policy where there is no deductible to cover those kinds of items.
Okay.
Another example would be e-bikes. Popular today. I wish I trusted drivers. I would buy one because they're so efficient and so effective. So if I pay $3,000 for an e-bike and I get on the road and park it and it's stolen, there is no coverage unless you have it specially insured. It's not covered under your homeowners or your car insurance. You need a policy on an e-bike. So a $3,000 e-bike, would be about $15 a month to insure, or $180 a year. So if you're in an e-bike or you're thinking about it, don't assume it's going to be covered unless you buy a separate policy for it.
And for information on that, how can people reach you?
You can call my office at 303-795-8855.
Again, that is the Roger Mangan State Farm Insurance Team at 303-795-8855.
Award-winning realtor Karen Levine with RE/MAX Alliance understands the importance of home ownership. Karen Levine works tirelessly at the local, county, state, and national levels to protect your private property rights. With nearly 30 years' experience as a Colorado realtor, Karen Levine will help you navigate the complicated metro real estate market, whether you're buying your home, selling your home, considering a new build, or exploring investment properties. Kim Monson highly recommends Karen Levine. Call Karen Levine at 303-877-7516. That's 303-877-7516 for answers to all your real estate needs.
You'd like to get in touch with one of the sponsors of the Kim Monson Show, but you can't remember their phone contact or website information. Find a full list of advertising partners on Kim's website, kimmonson.com. That's Kim, MONSON.com.
And welcome back to the Kim Monson Show. Be sure and check out our website. That is Kim Monson, MONSON.com. Sign up for our weekly email newsletter. You can email me at kim@kimmonson.com as well. Thank you to all of you who support us. We're an independent voice. We search for truth and clarity by looking at these issues through the lens of freedom versus force versus freedom. If something's a good idea, you should not have to force people to do it. Our word of the day is august. And now I got to get the computer back up here. But, Steve, I did what any smart person would do when somebody has suggested a word and I struggle with a sentence. I said, Christy Whaley, how about if you use august in a sentence? So she did. So I've got it right here in my, what did they call this? This is my lifeline. Is that what it is? Hey, yeah. Christy, it's my lifeline. She also is... She's one of my fellow Toastmasters, and she's really a wordsmith, and she challenges me when I mispronounce something, too, which I really do appreciate. So, august. And number one, the definition is respected and dignified. Synonym would be grand. Number two, of a quality inspiring mingled admiration and reverence, having an aspect of solemn dignity or grandeur. Sublime. Majestic, having exalted birth, character, state, or authority. Number three, noble, venerable, majestic, awe-inspiring, often of the highest social class. And this is what I got from my lifeline from Christy. Has there ever been a more august body of men than our founding fathers? Well done. Much better than my sentence in the first hour, Steve.
Yay, Christy, is all I can say, because she really got to the heart of that one.
Okay, and... Kurt Gerwitz, do you want to bite off the word of the day, or shall we just jump into our conversation?
Well, it makes me think of my dad joke that I brought in for you today.
You brought a dad joke?
Yeah, it's what do you call a fish wearing a bow tie?
A fish wearing a bow tie.
Sophisticated.
Oh, brother.
So maybe that fish is august.
Nice try.
Yeah. It's...
Professor Kurt Gerwitz.
If I would have known that was coming, I would have had a suitable sound effect.
Okay, Joe, you're probably going to have to get a whole bunch of those just to have those on ready to go. Okay, Professor Gerwitz. First of all, I know that you like to talk about your class that you teach.
I do, yes. I teach what I humbly call the best finance or investments class in all of Colorado. We do a deep dive on a publicly traded Colorado company, and we do a equity analyst report. So we are going to recommend to our readers whether or not they should invest. Now, this is not official. It's not
investment advice.
Yeah, it is not technically investment advice. We have to say that, and there are the disclaimer. It is for educational purposes only for us. We get to so you remember the industry. It always had not may that the past performance is not a good indicator of. It's the best indicator, but it's not a perfect indicator of future performance, and it may lose value and all that good legal jargon to cover our booties. But the Yeah, so we covered I like the small cap companies. There's about 100 publicly traded companies in Colorado. And you've got Ball Corp is one of the big boys. Crocs is one of the ones that you would know. But those guys are huge, and they're covered by a bunch of analysts already. Wall Street is looking at these companies because there's money in looking at these companies. Well, we look at the small ones in case Wall Street doesn't want to hop on a flight and come out here to our humble mountain
state.
Yes, our august mountain state. And for example, Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory is, they're headquartered in Durango. They are publicly traded. So I tell my students, and I tell anybody who will listen, that you don't have to just buy the product. If you love the product, maybe consider buying the company. And this is a good, my class, we teach how to think about should I or should I not buy that company. And so Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory, it has no analysts covering it. So does anybody on Wall Street from New York, the elites, do they want to fly into Durango, Colorado and go interview the CEO and do their due diligence and fundamental analysis that we teach on a company that's so small? They're really small. And in fact, we're not covering them yet. They're on my target list. I would love to cover them, mostly because I want my Willy Wonka experience. I want a tour of the chocolate factory. But we did cover Pure Cycle Corporation this last semester, and they are a water utility. And so here's a publicly traded water utility. So they're doing public-private partnerships because they're providing water. So they've got to come. Their competition is like Denver Water, and Denver Water just draws a line on the map and says, if you live here, we're a monopoly. We've got that. And so these guys have to be nimble. They have to be creative. And boy, are they. To give themselves a customer, they bought 900 acres in East Denver, an area called Sky Ranch, and they're just developing it. So now my students, they not only do they have to tell our readers about how does a water utility work and how do water rights work in Colorado. It's nothing simple there. But that's fun and exciting. But they also now had to learn how does the land development industry work. And these guys some of the houses they're building, they're selling them. Some of the houses they're building, they're going to keep them for rentals. And we really liked that narrative that they were a hedge against interest rates. So as interest rates go up, which is controlled by the Fed, we call it America's central bank, so then housing purchases will go down because it becomes more expensive to borrow money. Well, then renting goes up. If housing sales go down, renting goes up, and vice versa. So if the housing market is on fire and everybody's buying houses, then renting goes down, and so vice versa. So they're ready for either one, and they're, like I said, because they're like they're it's a large company. It's a couple $100 million in revenue. But they're nimble, and they go where the profit is, and they are they're promoting the.
Is profit a bad thing?
Profit is an indication that you are efficiently delivering value to the market. So is it a bad thing? I was just thinking about this the other day. If you had 100 people in a room and you wanted to motivate them to help each other, you would put an economic incentive for them to do that.
You mean like capitalism?
Exactly like capitalism. And there's a story, and I hate that I have to tell this story to people, but there's a story of a gentleman goes to the butcher and says, "I'd like some meat," and the butcher says, "Well, you need to prove to me that you've done some service, you've provided value to your community." And so he hands him a $20 bill because he had just got that $20 bill by mowing his neighbor's lawn. And that's how money works. It's a storage of value, and we exchange it for goods and services. And what we're going to talk about today is when the government gets involved, that there's always a cost to that. An inefficiency gets created.
So I have another question for you. And you mentioned analysts, that you said something about the big guys, that there's money in it. I'm like, okay, so what does that mean exactly? Because the analysts missed it on Silicon Valley Bank. There were analysts that were still out there recommending a buy when, if they'd really looked at, Jay Davidson had said, it was was, I don't know if it was the demand risk. Now I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was tremendous risk there with Silicon Valley Bank, and analysts missed it.
Yeah, analysts miss a lot, and it always makes the news when they do. But they also hit the they get it right a lot of times also, and analysts are the journalists of the financial industry, and so I always encourage my student to watch a show. It's on a documentary on Hulu right now called The China Hustle, and it's the story of he's a financial advisor, which I think you may have spent some time doing, or you're certainly adjacent. You're certainly close to it, so you understand that financial advisors help people with their, where should I invest my money? And he wanted to do good by his clients, and there was the great financial crisis, which arguably analysts miss also, and there's always the case that someone got it right and someone did not get it right. But so he wanted to do right by his clients, and he said it was so terrible what happened that his clients lost all their money in this great financial crisis. And he said, well, what do we do next? And the answer was China. And so as people are just like, oh, well, China's the next place to put money because their GDP can grow double digits. In the United States, we're not even close. If we grew at 3%, we'd be delighted. But China, we expect them to grow at 11%. And so it's a good place to put money, right? Except for there's no transparency. So he goes and says, well, let me actually investigate. So he kind of becomes an analyst. Like, he didn't take my class, but, the equivalent of it. This is what I'm teaching my students. He's like, be suspicious, be a journalist. Go figure out the real story. And he finds out China's probably a terrible place to put your money, that we can't trust their numbers. And we're seeing, like, it feels a lot like a Ponzi scheme is what he discovers. And then and this is the part you would like, then he goes political, and you watch, and this is a true story, and you watch this guy try to get a voice in Congress to say, look, we need to protect our investors. We need to get the word out that we're doing this again. We're just going to be hurting American investors. And he just had a hard time getting the word out, and then you see a bunch of these companies fail. It's illegal to tell the truth in China. It's illegal to be a journalist. It's illegal to be an analyst. And there's a story of and so it kind of makes it even a little bit more romantic for them to be vigilante, and they set up shop outside of a factory that says they're producing a certain a huge amount of product, and then they sit outside and they count trucks. And in this story, there's way less trucks than they're reporting, and so there you go. So you've got it. So we miss Silicon Valley Bank, perhaps, and it's what the surprise about Silicon Valley Bank seemed to be. There was a couple surprises there, but one of them was how quickly people can move deposits out of banks.
Well, and they're supposed to be able to do that.
Well, that's there. So look, we might see in Congress this. We might see legislation about getting out of protecting the consumer. You'll love that. Getting out of subscriptions. It's really easy to get into a subscription. I think Amazon Prime is going to get attacked, even though it's beloved. More people have Amazon Prime than go to church in the United States. It's insane how big Amazon Prime is. But it's real easy to sign up for Amazon Prime, but it's really hard to cancel your Amazon Prime member. I've got like 3 or 4 subscriptions through Apple. I've got 4 or 5 through Google Play, and I always I just see a few dollars trickling out of my account, and I'm like, oh, I need to cancel that one of these days. But clicking through and canceling it, I'm trying to close a bank account in Louisiana right now, and they say you have to walk into a branch. I can't do that. I'm in Denver, and so I have to write a handwritten letter with these 5 things. I don't have to get it signed by or stamped by a notary, but it's hard to get out of financial things.
So you have to tell them your favorite food, your dog's first name,
right,
all that stuff, right?
Yeah, even worse than that. So I think we'll see legislation that says to try to make it easier for consumers to cancel these subscriptions because it's easy to, and banks are they've always thought that they say the language is the deposits are sticky. It's really easy to get in, really hard to get out. And that was a surprisingly not the case with Silicon Valley Bank. People could just leave by using their phones, and they did quickly, and it was a bank run.
Yeah. And and what I find so we were talking about woke in the first hour. So apparently the Silicon Valley Bank was woke, and their management was focusing on wokeness instead of actually being bankers and doing what they were supposed to do. And there were many that were proud to be working with a woke bank, but when they figured out the woke bank might be in trouble, then the real human nature, we see that, and that's like, you may be woke, but I want my money. And that's what happened there. And then, of course, the woke Biden administration stepped in and honored, I guess, all of the deposits, which that was questionable as well. But we want to talk about the U.S. credit worthiness, because this is something that is super serious. I have Kurt Gerwitz in studio, professor of a great course, really impressive on what you're doing with your students there. And we get to have these discussions because of wonderful sponsors like Johnny Stubbs Heating and Air Conditioning Services.
It's Colorado. We want warm homes in the winter and cool, comfortable homes in the summer. Johnny Stubbs Services is the heating and air conditioning company to call to ensure that your heating and cooling systems run efficiently and last for years. Johnny Stubbs Services' team of experts provide proper guidance to help you make informed decisions about your heating and cooling needs. Kim Monson highly recommends Johnny Stubbs Services. Schedule your air conditioning check before summer arrives at JohnnyStubbsServices.com and receive a great gift. That's JohnnyStubbsServices.com.
Stay up to date on issues in public health and science by signing up and reading Dr. James Lyons Weiler's latest articles at Popular Rationalism on Substack. Find more information about popular rationalism at KimMonson.com.
Welcome back to the Kim Monson Show. Be sure and check out our website. That is Kim Monson, MONSON.com. Sign up for a weekly email newsletter. You can email me at kim@kimmonson.com as well. And thank you to all of you who support us. We're an independent voice. We search for truth and clarity by looking at these issues through the lens of freedom versus force versus freedom. Something's a good idea. You shouldn't have to force people to do it. And very pleased to have Boson Law as a new sponsor of the show. They are a local law firm dedicated to helping injured individuals in Denver and the surrounding areas fight for the justice they deserve. Boson Law focuses on personalized representation tailored to your unique situation with one-on-one attention and counsel and consistent communication. Boson Law personal injury lawyers have extensive trial experience and have successfully represented clients against the interests of powerful corporations, manufacturers, insurance companies, and government agencies. Contact Boson Law at 303-999-9999 for a complimentary in-person consultation. That number is 303-999-9999. Kurt Gerwitz, the U.S. Credit worthiness has been downgraded. This is serious, isn't it?
It is. I can give you the other side of this. I can tell you why we think it's okay, or I can tell you who thinks it's okay, and you'll probably disagree. I think it is serious. There is time for us. There's enough time for us to change our ways and to change our path, but there's no indication that we will, and that's why it's serious. Mm-hmm. So what happened is that Fitch, and there are 3 credit rating agencies for corporate bonds, and they do government bonds as well. And so you got S&P Global, Fitch, and Moody's, 1, 2, 3. And actually, I have those out of order because Fitch is the one that did this. They're the one that made the news, and they are like the third place of those 3. So, if you can name the third most popular cola in the United States after Coke and Pepsi, I'd be impressed. And if you could name the third most popular anything, I'm always impressed, because the Pareto distribution, the 80-20 rule, makes the third thing not, mostly insignificant. But but they're also the rubber match. They're whenever I start a company, I want 3 people in the company. I don't want to have a company with two people because you'll get deadlocks. You need a tiebreaker. Mm-hmm. And so if Fitch is a tiebreaker, then we're in trouble, because S&P Global in 2011, after the great financial crisis, they downgraded the United States from the highest rating, which is called AAA, and they bring it down one called AA+. And so S&P Global did that in 2011. It has not the United States has not gone back up to the highest rating since then for S&P Global, and Fitch has downgraded us. So if there are companies or if there are investors and they're taking the average, then the average has now tilted in the wrong direction for the United States.
So Moody's hasn't done anything yet? That's AAA with Moody's?
Yeah, that's right. So Moody's still thinks that the United States is the gold standard. And the reality is that the United States is really still the gold standard. We just have... I love this metaphor that I've got running in my head. It's like if you were going to lend your cousin money, but then you realized that... that maybe you start to question whether or not he's ever going to pay you back.
Right.
And like if your cousin got in a fight with his wife and you thought, well, that's a domestic dispute, is that going to affect their credit worthiness? It might, right? It might. And so when the Democrats and Republicans, when they get into these ridiculous fights over the debt ceiling, that it was named, January 6th was named. The debt ceiling was named. I'm going to see if I can grab the language off my notes here, but it was embarrassingly bad governance is one of the reasons that the United States looks like we no longer hold the highest rank credit rating.
What about isn't there supposed to be a meeting in the end of August with now I can't remember the name. It's the name of these different countries that they may say that the dollar will no longer be the currency for petro.
The petrodollar. When we in 1971 Nixon took the U.S. dollar off of the gold standard and it became free floating, and people at that time thought it was the apocalypse and it was going to be the end of the world, and it hasn't been. So what backs the U.S. dollar? And the answer is trust. It's faith in the U.S. government and faith in the U.S. economic system, faith in our institutions. And this is why I think your voice, when you raise a red flag about our institutions are rotting, as much as I choose to not be a declinist myself, I think that your voice is so important to say we've got to be a city on the hill. We need the American exceptionalism in the world needs to continue. The other countries look at us when they see like different parts of our government that will sue another part of our government, or just how our founding fathers, one of their genius moves was the separation of powers and the three branches of government, how they can actually like disagree and fight with each other, and that sort of adversarial relationship brings about the best results. And
I was and it's so interesting you would bring that up, Kurt, because I was thinking about the tension. I was thinking about this tension that is going on right now in the Colorado GOP between the Republican operative consultants that they would really rather take out the grassroots GOP than the radical activist Democrats. And I thought, well, this tension that is occurring right now in the Colorado GOP, I think it's healthy as far as that we've got this tension. We've not had that tension because it seems, it seems almost like there's this big, I don't know what to call it exactly. I guess the deep state, we'll call it that. And there's the American people. And the American people are waking up to the danger.
The administrative class.
Of the administrative state. And there is this tension that is occurring right now. And I think there's something really healthy about it because we haven't had this tension. We've elected people and said, oh, we know that they have our best interest in mind, and okay, we won't pay any attention. We can't do that. We have a responsibility to pay attention. That's why we do the show, is so that people can be paying attention to what's going on, because this tension is super important, I think.
Yeah, so you and I were having a philosophical question about, when is competition such a good thing? And it generally it is, right? But there's probably specific cases where you don't, none of us want to be held. None of us enjoy being held to account, right? It doesn't feel good, perhaps, or it doesn't feel good to have to compete. But we also find our best selves from it. So when you talk about, the BRICS countries, perhaps.
Oh, that's what it was, the BRICS countries.
Yeah, so that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, maybe Spain. I don't know. It's not Spain.
No, it's is it South Africa?
South Africa.
I think it was South Africa.
I'm going to think of the S. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll look it up.
And so when
I'll get on that.
when they get together and say they're going to trade in their own currencies, so America's dollar is the world reserve currency. And what that means is, like, when other countries trade with us, and because we import so much more than we export, when we send them our dollars for them to send us their stuff, so that's U.S. dollars leaving the United States, going into their bank accounts. And, this is the thing I always, when I was working in foreign exchange, if you go into a bank in Mexico and you say, I'd like to open an account, they'll say, what currency would you like to open that in? It's illegal in the United States to ask for a banker to ask that question, because this is America. We're going to use dollars. We're going to speak English. We're going to use dollars. And we're not going to think in foreign languages. We're not going to think in foreign currencies. But in other countries, they have these reserves of U.S. dollars, and there's as many outside the United States as there are inside the United States. And you need about 40 trillion, or I'd say it's 50 trillion now. It's been a few years since I wrote my paper on this, that to run the global economy. And the dollar is let's compare the dollar to everything else. You've got the euro, you've got the Chinese yuan, you've got crypto, and gold. So compared to all of those, the U.S. dollar still stands out so
above gold.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, trading in gold is a pain in the butt. Right. Gold is one of the worst of those. There's a reason we don't like. There's a reason we were, even when we were on the gold standard, we were still just using paper representations of gold. And so, so there's just crypto has about like a trillion, maybe two, in market cap, and I said you needed 40 or 50 trillion, and it has 1 or 2. The euro, it's about the same size as crypto, actually, I think. And the Chinese yuan is actually, because it's pegged to the U.S. dollar, it's just a proxy for the U.S. dollar. They're manipulating their currency, and they're keeping it within a range. And so that's not even a real currency. It's not free floating, and there's not enough in circulation. And no one trusts the Chinese government they'll just change their mind and say, oh, no, you don't own that anymore. We own that. That's the thing they do. They don't have the rule of law where different parts of the government can sue different other parts of the government. They don't have the institutions. They don't have the trust. And so there's really no close second to the U.S. dollar. And these countries that we named, the BRICS countries, when they get together and say that they're going to trade in each other's currencies, they've done this before, and we say, America does not just lay back and say good luck. America meddles in international affairs. So it's a real big deal if they're going to trade. Like, when I said,
but does Biden care? Does the Biden administration and the administrative state care? Because it seems to me, Kurt, what they're doing with this out-of-control spending and this printing of money is they are undercutting the U.S. dollar. And so if we had real leadership, somebody that really cared about the American people, the American economy, that'd be one thing, but I don't trust it.
Yeah, the spending is a problem. I came in here a month ago and talked about the debt at $33 trillion is a real problem. We got downgraded because we are now spending more on interest than we are in defense.
So, and that when I was talking to Dr. Brian Junedepth, so the Federal Reserve has this meteoric raising of interest rates, which is one of the reasons Silicon Valley Bank got into trouble. But it did put then some of these banking institutions on the edge, has made it very difficult for businesses. Why on earth would they raise those rates so quickly? That seemed
because they found themselves behind the ball. They when inflation first showed up, which is
government induced.
It is, and when it first showed up, they thought it wasn't government induced at that time.
Come on, Janet Yellen, it's transitory. I about fell off my chair on that one.
Yeah, well, the reason they cited that they said it was transitory is because they thought it was related to the supply chain, and the supply chain was really disrupted by COVID. We couldn't get a lot of things in. It's still disrupted. It's also disrupted by, tariffs and bad laws. But and so some of it still is going to be that. But it is absolutely, as it turns out, it was not transitory, right? So you were right. You should have bet on that. You could have won money on that. And so the Fed's mandate is twofold. They have to they're concerned themselves primarily with inflation and also jobs. So unemployment and inflation are the two things that the reason the Fed exists, or the reason that the Fed believes it exists, are those two things. And they think inflation is a civilization killer. They look at the fall of Rome, they look at the rise of Hitler, and they say inflation caused those. And they were like, look, we should have a recession in the United States in order to.
And a recession hurts people.
Oh, their suicide goes up. People lose their jobs. Recessions are horrible, but they think it's less painful than inflation, and so they got behind the ball. So they moved it up too quickly, and I think they need to stop. I don't think they're going to stop. I think they're going to do one or two. Historically, most recessions have been caused by the Fed raising rates.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm talking with Professor Kurt Gerwitz, and I'll just mention BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. That's BRICS, and we were talking about that just a moment ago. But we have these important conversations because of important sponsors like Lauren Levy.
Knowledge is power. A reverse mortgage can be an important financial tool for individuals 62 and older. It is essential to understand the process so that all your questions are answered. With nearly 20 years in the mortgage industry, Lauren Levy with Polygon Financial Group has the experience to answer your questions. Lauren understands that each financial transaction is personal. If you'd like to explore your options on a reverse mortgage, remodel your home, buy a rental property, or move, call Lauren Levy at 303-880-8881. Kim Monson highly recommends Lauren Levy for all your mortgage needs. Call Lauren at 303-880-8881.
All of Kim's sponsors are an inclusive partnership with Kim and are not affiliated with or in partnership with KLZ or Crawford Broadcasting. If you would like to support the work of the Kim Monson Show and grow your business, contact Kim at her website, kimmonson.com. That's Kim Monson, MONSON.com.
Franktown Firearms staff and customers alike are concerned with your safety and ability to shoot well, and that comes from the sense of community that they foster at their shop. The staff doesn't work on commissions from sales, so there won't be any pressure to buy what you don't need. They host events like Ladies' Night every first Friday and a Tactical Fun Night every third Friday because they value their community and they understand that selling the most expensive product doesn't help you learn to shoot. Your money goes further at Franktown because they'd rather you to be self-sufficient with what you already own and be proficient in using it. If you're looking for a range and shop that can take you to the next level in your self-defense training, learn how to shoot in realistic scenarios from instructors who have been there, done that. Then look no further than Franktown Firearms. Go to klzradio.com/Franktown. Franktown Firearms, where friends are made.
And welcome back to the Kim Monson Show. Be sure and check out our website. That is Kim Monson, MONSON.com. Sign up for a weekly email newsletter. And you can email me at kim@kimmonson.com as well. Thank you to all of you who support us. We're an independent voice. We search for truth and clarity by looking at these issues through the lens of freedom versus force, force versus freedom. If something's a good idea, you should not have to force people to do it. Text line is 720-605-0647. Call in is 303-477-5600. Wanted to mention two nonprofits that I dearly love, and one of those is the Center for American Values, located in Pueblo, Colorado, on the beautiful Riverwalk. And a couple of things. The Center for American Values focuses on honoring our Medal of Honor recipients, and I've been sharing quotes from this beautiful Medal of Honor quote book almost every morning. And then also they are focusing on on the reasons that we have these Medal of Honor recipients who, when the situation presented itself, they took action. And so we have to take action in the battle of ideas that we're engaged in. And so there also have these great educational programs regarding integrity and honor, integrity, and patriotism. So you get more information at AmericanValueCenter.org. And then also the USMC Memorial Foundation. I got to know them in my journey with America's Veteran Stories, and Paula Sarles and her team. And Paula is the president, but she's also a Gold Star wife and a Marine veteran. It is on her heart and her team's heart to raise the money for the remodel of the Marine Memorial, and you can do that by you can help them by going to usmcmemorialfoundation.org. That's usmcmemorialfoundation.org. Kurt Gerwitz is in studio with me, and I love Christy Whaley. She always reminds us that it wasn't COVID that disrupted everything. It was the reaction to COVID that did that. And I think that's important that people make that distinction.
I love Christy. She was a mentee of mine. She was a protege at Toastmasters. I was her mentor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and she was working on bringing more mentoring relationships into Liberty Toastmasters. So she did good work there, yeah.
And, she's a real wordsmith, and I really appreciate that with her. So, Christy, thank you. Have a great day.
I will push back. I think we're talking about the supply chain, and it was COVID in other countries where people were really dying and not showing up to work, and things were not getting manufactured, and shipping didn't happen.
But again, it was the reaction to a lot of things. It was the reaction. So that's a whole nother discussion.
But it was
the reaction to all of that that disrupted everything. We've got Gammy on the line. Gammy, what's on your radar?
Well, I'm sorry about Steve going. I mean, I'm happy for him if he's happy, but I'm sorry to see him go, too, because you two make such a great, dueling banjos.
That's true, and I will miss him, Gammy, and very excited, though. Joe, I think, is young, much younger than us, and I'm really excited about the perspective that he is going to bring. So I think that's going to be super awesome.
That's true. Okay, look, I'll get right to the meat of it. I had to miss a little bit of the show when I had to go out already, and I'm back in. But I stayed on Zoom all day Saturday to show solidarity since I couldn't go to Castle Rock, to the meeting for the GOP.
Okay.
And I tried to keep an open mind. I did a lot of chat writing on the side with a few people on the chat. But what I watched, one of the heroes in my book was Bonnewell when he spoke. I mean, to me, he nailed it. But what I started to see, I saw deterioration, and I call them stall tactics. I've watched for the last 3 years. They stall with stupid stuff that really is not relevant to the moment. But I saw the stall, so I knew what was coming. I knew this was a setup. And that made me sad. But I think that we've been bashed as the, quote, grassroots top-line people. And yet, those people that are now in there try to show everyone. The most stunning part of the day for me was the treasurer giving his report of the literally lying and stealing of money, or in the very least mismanagement and moving of money in places it shouldn't be. They had to empty 3 storage units with almost nothing.
Okay, now, Gammy, I did not see this, so...
wow, you got to catch that treasurer report.
Okay.
Because he showed all the books, he showed the money, and people wrote checks to themselves. I mean, there are some bad stuff that happened.
So this was before this...
Before Dave Williams. Yeah, they couldn't even get the books for weeks and weeks, and the SEC, wanted their books. How you have to report regularly. They couldn't even get the books timely. When they finally got them, there were irregularities, and this man showed it on slides to the whole assembly, the body, as they call it. I mean, this is not a joke. I forget what you just called them a little while ago, the establishment, the people who don't want any of our people, the Todd Williams, the Dave Williams, anybody, they don't want any of the people we represent, and yet unless the parties are transparent. And plus, everybody was complaining, and I thought, are you people missing brain cells that you would dare to expect anybody to be able to vote in your... That's like letting the Kansas City Chiefs vote for the Bronco players they're going to hire. It was the height of insanity, and I told myself, did these people have too many booster shots and their brains aren't working? Because nothing made sense to me except contrived nastiness and stupidity. When the republic is in danger, you don't quote FART around like they did. So I'm feeling like these people really weren't being honest, because Dave took over. They had 3 accounts and they had very little money in any of them. Why would you have 3 storage units with almost nothing in them, charging tons of money every month, and they couldn't even get codes for weeks to get into monitor stuff?
Okay, Gammy, thank you, and thank you for being a watchdog that you are. And Gammy, I think what you're saying, and I'm going to throw this over to Kurt, is transparency. So I had heard, and I actually had seen somebody had taken a photo of the Treasurer's report, and it doesn't make sense for a healthy organization to not have a healthy turnover from one I don't want to say regime, but maybe that's the word, but from one set to the other. And there should be transparency. And so these questions that you're bringing up, Gammy, are important questions. Thank you so much. And boy, I tell you, Kurt, transparency is so important. But sometimes it's people don't want to believe that would occur. I mean, it's hard to believe sometimes.
Yeah, well, I really enjoyed Gammy just now. I mean, that's an advertisement for my class. Like, you got to go to a meeting and understand what the treasurer is saying, and that I wrote down the word transparency, but I also wrote down clean books and follow the money. And these are the skills we teach, an analyst to think about. And so, a wise man once said, don't just tell me your values, show me your budget.
You're going to love the quote that I have for the end of the show as well, because I actually chose it and didn't realize that we would be talking about transparency so much with you and with Dr. Brian Junedepth. And it pains me. It just pains me to see this infighting. But yet it is important to see, to get to the transparency on what has been happening in Colorado politics over this time, because ultimately what has happened while all this has been going on, while the Republican operative consultant class has kind of been controlling the party and then been in bed with the radical activist Democrats, then we see what's happening in Colorado. And I mean, inflation is hurting people. Crime, number 1 in auto thefts. My cousin came up from Kansas and parked their vehicle in the hotel parking lot of an airport, a hotel out by the airport. They came out the next day, it was gone. 6 people from my hometown have had their car stolen.
That's why I drive a stick shift.
Yeah, right. They're going, I can't drive that. I'm not going to. But crime and homelessness and inflation and dirty cities, all of this, people are wondering what's happened to Colorado. So we've got just less than a minute. What's your final thought on everything?
So Fitch, when it downgraded the United States government, it said that it cited 3 things: the erosion of governance, high and growing debt burden, and expected fiscal deterioration. And so we've got to turn it around. And so I always conclude with the simplicity at the end of all this complexity is our own personal spirituality. If we can just sit in silence and discover our Christ consciousness inside of us, or our Buddha energy, if in case you're not a Christian, inside of us, each one of us has something that is calm, curious, creative, connected, compassionate, confident, clear, and courageous. And you listen to that voice, and it will guide you to take on these problems.
Well, that's why we do what we're doing. Kirk Gerwitz, it's always great to have you here. Thanks.
It's great to be here. Thanks.
And our quote for the end of the show is Patrick Henry. He said, "The liberties of a people never were nor ever will be secure when the transactions of their rulers may be concealed from them." So, my friends, today be grateful, read great books, think good thoughts, listen to beautiful music, communicate and listen well, live honestly and authentically, strive for high ideals, and like Superman, stand for truth, justice, and the American way. My friends, you are not alone. God bless you, and God bless America.
Like a new moon rising fierce through the rain and lightning, wandering out into this great unknown. And I don't want no one to cry, but tell them if I don't survive, I was born free. I was born free. I was born free.
The views and opinions expressed on KLZ 560 are those of the speaker, commentators, hosts, their guests, and callers. They are not necessarily the views and opinions of Crawford Broadcasting or KLZ management, employees, associates, or advertisers. KLZ 560 is a Crawford Broadcasting God and Country station.